What if I told you that one AI just absolutely demolished the other in a head-to-head battle, winning almost every round? And no, it's not the one you think. I spent hours putting ChatGPT 5 and Claude Sonnet 4.5 through 10 brutal challenges, from debugging broken code to planning the perfect road trip, and the results genuinely shocked me. One of these AIs wrote a mystery story so clever it gave me chills, while the other couldn't even explain a logic puzzle without confusing itself. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which AI deserves your subscription. And trust me, the winner isn't who the internet says it is. Let's dive in. Before we begin, let me explain how this test works. I'm not just asking these AIs to write me a poem or summarize an article. Anyone can do that. Instead, I've created 10 challenges across 6 different categories, from coding and math to creative writing and business strategy. These are real-world tasks that actually test how these models think, reason, and solve problems. And I'm going to show you exactly what each AI produced, the good, the bad, and the genuinely impressive. Let's start with something technical. Challenge number 1, code debugging. I gave both AIs this broken Python function that's supposed to calculate the factorial of a number. Here's the exact prompt I used. I have this Python function that's supposed to calculate the factorial of a number, but it's not working correctly. Can you identify all the bugs and provide a corrected version with explanations? And here's the buggy code. Now, if you know Python, you can already see the problems here. The question is, can the AIs spot them all? ChatGPT 5 came out swinging. It was extremely thorough, catching all the major bugs. The syntax error where I used a single equals sign instead of double equals, the infinite recursion problem because the function calls itself with the same number, and the missing base case for 0. But here's where it impressed me. It didn't just fix the bugs, it went beyond and suggested adding input validation for negative numbers and non-integers, which is exactly what you'd want in production code. It even mentioned potential recursion depth issues with large numbers and provided both the corrected recursive version and a more robust iterative version using a loop. Plus, it included assert statements to test the code. This is professional-grade debugging. Claude Sonnet 4.5 took a different approach. Its response was incredibly clear and concise, using emojis to distinguish between wrong and correct code, which made it super easy to read. It successfully identified the main bugs and explained each one in simple, direct language. But here's the thing. It didn't mention handling for non-integer types, didn't bring up performance limitations, and didn't suggest an iterative alternative. It was good, but not as comprehensive. For this first challenge, ChatGPT 5 takes the win. When you're debugging code, you want thoroughness, and ChatGPT delivered a deeper understanding of software engineering principles. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 0. But hold on, because challenge number 2 is where things get interesting. System architecture. Here's the prompt. Design a scalable architecture for a real-time chat application that needs to support 100,000 concurrent users. Include database choices, caching strategies, message queue systems, and explain how you'd handle message delivery, user presence, and file sharing. Provide a detailed technical breakdown. This is a massive question. It's the kind of thing you'd get in a senior software engineer interview at a tech giant. ChatGPT 5 produced what looked like a formal system design proposal. It was professionally structured, starting with high-level goals and traffic flow before diving into component details. It mentioned a wide array of modern technologies like Pulsar, ScyllaDB, OpenTelemetry, and Envoy. The rationale was detailed, comparing options like DynamoDB versus Cassandra for message storage. It even included dedicated sections for observability and security, which are critical for real-world systems. This was impressive, but here's the problem. It was highly abstract and text-heavy. While detailed, it lacked concrete examples, making it harder to actually visualize how you'd implement this. Then I looked at Claude Sonnet 4.5's response, and my jaw dropped. This wasn't just a design document, it was a blueprint. Claude filled its response with SQL schema definitions, JSON object examples for caching, and JavaScript pseudocode for classes like WebSocket Server and File Service. It broke down the database architecture into three distinct choices: Cassandra for messages, PostgreSQL for user data, and MongoDB for file metadata, and explained the role of each. The use of code blocks to show API calls, rate-limiting logic, and monitoring metrics was exceptionally clear. The step-by-step flows for message delivery and file sharing were easy to follow. This was the kind of document you could hand to a development team and say, "Build this." Claude wins round 2, and it's not even close. While both models produced excellent designs, Claude's extensive use of practical code examples transformed an abstract concept into something tangible and developer-friendly. Score: 1-1. Now let's test their mathematical reasoning with challenge number 3, a complex word problem. Here's what I asked. A water tank has 2 pipes. Pipe A can fill the tank in 6 hours, while Pipe B can empty it in 8 hours. If both pipes are open simultaneously when the tank is empty, how long will it take to fill the tank? Additionally, if there's a leak that can empty the full tank in 12 hours, how does this change your answer? Show your complete reasoning process. ChatGPT-5 got the math right and arrived at the correct answer quickly. The steps were shown, but they were extremely condensed. It showed the how of the calculation, but not really the why, which makes it less helpful if you're trying to actually learn the concept. Claude Sonnet 4.5, on the other hand, delivered a masterclass in explanation. It broke down the rate of each pipe, explained the concept of a net rate, and calculated the solution step by step. It included a summary table, a section called Reasoning Process Explained, and even a final verification step to prove the answer was correct. This is exactly how you'd want a math tutor to explain a problem to you. Claude takes round 3. Its pedagogical approach was vastly superior. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 2. Challenge number 4 is a famous logic puzzle that stumps most people. The 12 coins problem. The prompt. You have 12 identical-looking coins, but one is counterfeit and weighs slightly different. You don't know if it's heavier or lighter. You have a balance scale and can use it exactly 3 times. Describe a strategy to identify the counterfeit coin and determine whether it's heavier or lighter than the genuine coins. This is notoriously difficult. ChatGPT-5 identified the core concepts of partitioning the coins, but the explanation was confusing and jumbled. It even seemed to correct itself mid-explanation, saying, "To avoid confusion, below is a well-known canonical plan," which is never a good sign. The logic tree wasn't clearly laid out, making the solution hard to actually follow or implement. Claude Sonnet 4.0 was flawless. It used clear labels like Case A, Case B, Case C, with logical substeps under each. The entire strategy was presented as a clear, executable algorithm. But here's what really impressed me. It included a section called Why This Works, explaining the information theory behind the solution. That's brilliant. It doesn't just give you the answer, it teaches you the underlying principle. Claude wins round 4 by a landslide. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 3. Now let's switch gears to creativity. Challenge number 5. Constrained creative writing. Here's the prompt. Write a 200-word mystery story that takes place entirely in an elevator, involves exactly 3 characters, contains a plot twist in the last sentence, never explicitly states what the mystery is but makes it clear through context, and uses only dialogue and minimal action descriptions. This is hard. You have to follow strict constraints while still telling a compelling story. ChatGPT-5's story created a tense, mysterious atmosphere with its dialogue, but the narrative was abstract and confusing. The twist, "because I never brought a briefcase," felt like a non sequitur that didn't resolve the preceding tension in a satisfying way. It just didn't quite come together as a coherent story. Claude Sonnet 4.5's story was brilliant. It perfectly followed all the constraints. The dialogue was natural and built suspense effectively. The mystery, which turned out to be about a surprise party gone wrong, was clever. And the twist ending, "she's been planning your funeral all week," was sharp, dark, and recontextualized the entire story in a single line. I had to read it twice because it was that good. Claude wins round 5. It demonstrated a far better grasp of narrative structure and delivered a genuinely impactful twist. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 4. Challenge number 6 tests marketing skills. I asked both AIs to create product launch emails for Chronosphere, a smartwatch that uses AI to predict stress levels and automatically adjust your schedule. The prompt specified, write 3 versions. One for busy executives that's professional and ROI focused. One for fitness enthusiasts that's health focused and energetic. And one for tech early adopters that's feature rich and innovation focused. Each should be 100 to 150 words with a clear call to action. ChatGPT 5 produced professional emails that were correctly targeted to the general persona. The language was appropriate for each audience, but the content felt somewhat generic. It lacked the specific, punchy details that make marketing copy truly compelling. Claude Sonnet 4.5's targeting was exceptionally precise. The language, features, and calls to action were perfectly tailored. The tech email, for instance, listed specific specs like ARM Cortex-M7 processor and Quantum Dot AMOLED display, which is exactly the kind of detail that appeals to early adopters. The executive version focused on productivity metrics and ROI. The fitness version was energetic and health-focused. Each email felt like it was written by someone who deeply understood that specific audience. Claude wins round 6. Both did a good job, but Claude's response was more effective as actual marketing copy. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 5. Now we're getting into the heavy stuff. Challenge number 7, business problem solving. Here's the scenario. A local bookstore is losing customers to online retailers. They have $50,000 to invest and 6 months to turn things around. The store has 2,000 square feet of space, is located near a university, and has a loyal but aging customer base. Analyze this situation and provide 3 distinct strategic approaches, pros and cons of each approach, a detailed implementation plan for your recommended strategy, and key metrics to track success. ChatGPT 5 provided a solid, high-level summary of potential strategies. The implementation plan and budget were logical and covered the main points. It was a good outline, but it lacked the depth you'd need to actually execute the plan. Claude Sonnet 4.5's response was phenomenal. It could have been mistaken for a document from a professional business consultant. It included a detailed month-by-month implementation plan, a precise budget breakdown showing exactly where every dollar would go, an exhaustive list of over 30 specific KPIs to track, risk mitigation strategies, and even a long-term vision beyond the 6-month window. The level of actionable detail was staggering. You could literally hand this to a bookstore owner, and they could start implementing it tomorrow. Claude wins round 7 by an enormous margin. This wasn't just an answer. It was a complete professional-grade business plan. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 6. Challenge number 8 gets philosophical, ethical reasoning. The prompt: a self-driving car's brakes fail. It must choose between swerving left into a concrete barrier, likely killing the passenger, continuing straight and likely hitting and killing a pedestrian, or swerving right into a group of 3 people. How should the AI be programmed to decide? Analyze this from multiple ethical frameworks: utilitarian, deontological, virtue ethics, and explain which approach you'd recommend and why. Consider legal, moral, and practical implications. This is the famous trolley problem adapted for autonomous vehicles. ChatGPT 5 delivered a very strong analysis that correctly applied the main ethical frameworks. The recommended approach was sound and well-reasoned. It was a good response that demonstrated solid understanding of ethical philosophy. Claude Sonnet 4.5 produced an exceptionally thorough, academic-level response. It not only covered the main 3 frameworks, but also added care ethics and social contract theory. Here's what really set it apart. It incorporated real-world data from the MIT Moral Machine Study, discussed legal considerations from actual court cases, and addressed engineering realities. The final recommendation was a sophisticated, multi-layered algorithm that balanced multiple ethical considerations. This was the kind of analysis you'd expect from a graduate-level philosophy or ethics course. Claude wins round 8. While ChatGPT's answer was good, Claude's was outstanding in its comprehensiveness and use of external knowledge. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 7. Challenge number 9 tests conceptual understanding, correlation versus causation. The prompt. Explain why the following statement is flawed. Ice cream sales and drowning deaths are correlated. Therefore, ice cream causes drowning. Then provide 3 real-world examples of similar correlation-causation errors, a framework for identifying spurious correlations, statistical methods to test for actual causation, and how this applies to interpreting news headlines about scientific studies. ChatGPT-5 provided a correct and clear explanation of the concept. It gave good examples and listed relevant statistical methods like randomized controlled trials and regression analysis. But it lacked a strong pedagogical structure. It felt more like a list of facts than a cohesive lesson. Claude Sonnet 4.5 delivered another masterpiece of structure and explanation. It created a custom acronym called CRITIC as a memorable framework for evaluating causal claims. It detailed the causal inference hierarchy to rank different types of evidence from weakest to strongest. And it provided a headline translation guide showing how to mentally rewrite misleading news headlines. This was a complete, well-organized textbook chapter on the topic that you could actually use as a reference. Claude wins round 9. Its ability to create useful frameworks and structure knowledge in a pedagogical way makes it far superior for learning. Score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 8. And finally, challenge number 10, practical application. I asked for a detailed road trip planning. The prompt. I'm planning a 2-week road trip from New York to California in June with a $3,000 budget, excluding gas. I want to see national parks, avoid tourist traps, and experience authentic local culture. I have camping gear and don't mind basic accommodations. Create a day-by-day itinerary including route with specific stops, accommodation suggestions with estimated costs, must-see attractions with why they're worth it, budget breakdown, and 3 insider tips for each major stop. ChatGPT-5 created a very solid itinerary that followed the constraints. It suggested a logical route and good points of interest. The budget was reasonable and the stops made sense. But the insider tips were somewhat generic, the kind of thing you could find in any travel guide. Claude Sonnet 4.5's itinerary was incredibly detailed and felt authentic. The insider tips were hyper-specific and genuinely useful. For example, for Memphis, it said, go to Payne's Bar BQ, cash only, $8. Chopped pork sandwich that'll change your life. That's not generic advice, that's the kind of tip you get from someone who's actually been there. The budget breakdown was meticulous, accounting for every meal and campsite. The entire document felt like it was written by a seasoned road tripper who knew every back road and hidden gem along the route. Claude wins the final round. The sheer level of useful, specific, and authentic detail makes it vastly more impressive and practical. Final score: ChatGPT 1, Claude 9. So there you have it. Claude Sonnet 4.5 absolutely dominated this competition, winning 9 out of 10 challenges. And honestly, the margin of victory in most of those rounds wasn't even close. ChatGPT 5 showed competence and even excellence in straightforward analytical tasks like code debugging, but Claude consistently demonstrated superior structure, actionable detail, and deep reasoning across diverse and complex challenges. Here's what I learned. Claude excels at organizing complex information into highly readable formats, whether that's business plans, step-by-step guides, or ethical analyses. Its responses are filled with concrete, specific, and practical details, from code snippets and SQL schemas to exact restaurant names and budget line items. And it has a remarkable ability to reason through complex problems, create novel frameworks, and write compelling, structured narratives. Does this mean ChatGPT 5 is bad? Absolutely not. It's still an incredibly powerful AI that performed well in several challenges. But if I had to choose one AI for serious work, complex problem-solving, or learning new concepts, Claude Sonnet 4.5 is the clear winner based on this comprehensive test. If you found this comparison helpful, hit that like button and subscribe because I'm planning more AI battles like this. Drop a comment below telling me which challenges you want to see next. Should I test them on coding entire applications, scientific research, legal analysis? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.